In the English-speaking world, the term cult often carries derogatory connotations. In this sense, it has been considered a subjective term used as an ad hominem attack against groups with differing doctrines or practices. In the 1970s, with the rise of secular anti-cult movements, scholars began to abandon the use of the term cult. According to the Oxford Handbook of New Religious Movements, by the end of the decade, the term new religions would virtually replace the term cult to describe all of those leftover groups that did not fit easily under the label of church or sect. A cult is a group requiring unwavering devotion to a set of beliefs and practices which are considered deviant outside the norms of society, which is typically led by a charismatic and self-appointed leader who tightly controls its members. It is in some contexts a pejorative term, also used for new religious movements and other social groups which are defined by their unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical beliefs and rituals, or their common interest in a particular person, object, or goal. This sense of the term is weakly defined, having divergent definitions, both in popular culture and academia, and has also been an ongoing source of contention among scholars across several fields of study. Jeffrey Lundgren, a cult leader and a self-professed prophet, Jeffrey Lundgren was born on May 3, 1950, in Independence, Missouri, and grew up as a member of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He was severely abused as a child, particularly by his father. Lundgren was, by most accounts, a loner when he was in middle and high school. He became an expert hunter when he began to spend time with his father as a teenager, becoming knowledgeable in the use and maintenance of firearms. In summer 1984, Lundgren and his family moved from Missouri to Kirtland so that Lundgren could serve as senior temple guide, a job that had no pay but did include family lodging. Lundgren initially attracted favorable attention in his Sunday school classes and as a guide. William Russell, a religion professor at an LDS college, testified that Lundgren knew Scripture exceptionally well, especially the Book of Mormon, and followed the chastic method of Scripture interpretation, which involves searching text for recurring patterns. However, Lundgren did not understand the Bible's historical context and tended to concentrate on this esoteric method. Lundgren generally fit within the traditions of the RLDS faith in that he described visions, direct spiritual experiences, and God speaking directly to prophets. Over the next 3 years, Lundgren served as a temple guide and taught classes on the Bible and the Book of Mormon. Despite the church's direction to turn over all money received from temple visitors to the church, Lundgren solicited and kept contributions received from visitors. Temple contributions dropped dramatically, and the temple bookstore also suffered fund shortages. The church eventually removed Lundgren as a religion teacher and, in October 1987, fired him as a temple guide and evicted him from his quarters next to the temple. From 1985 on, Lundgren attracted a substantial following in his classes because of his knowledge of religious texts. Eventually, Kevin Curry and Sharon Blunchley moved in with the Lundgrens, as did Richard Brand, Daniel Kraft, and Gregory Winship. Debbie Olivares joined the group in April 1988. Those living with the Lundgrens called him Dad and contributed their paychecks and other money for common group expenses. 2 couples, Ron and Susan Luff and Dennis and Tanya Patrick, also contributed money, but did not live with the Lundgrens. In the spring of 1987, the Avery family moved from Missouri to follow Lundgren's teachings. The Avery family included Dennis, age 49, Cheryl, age 46, and their daughters, Trina, age 15, Rebecca, age 13, and Karen, age 7. After Lundgren's eviction, he and his family and followers moved to a rented farmhouse, There, Lundgren continued his classes, stressing the importance of the Kirtland Temple. According to Lundgren, his followers had to recapture the temple, an earthquake would elevate it, and Christ would return and establish Zion. Lundgren also spoke of his conversations with God and his visions. He discussed the Book of Revelations and the Book of Mormon, and referred to pruning the vineyard and the need to kill 10 followers before Zion could be created. Eventually, the men in the group undertook paramilitary training to prepare for a temple assault. Lundgren picked May 3, 1988, his birthday, as the day to recapture the temple, but later decided it was not yet time. The Averys, on the fringe of the group, were invited to only a few of Lundgren's prayer meetings. By October 1988, the RLDS Church had excommunicated Lundgren. In early 1989, Lundgren was stressing the need for his followers to go on a wilderness trip before Zion would be possible. By that time, both Kevin Curry and another follower, Cher Olson, had left the group, but Catherine and Larry Keith Johnson had joined. In April 1989, at Lundgren's direction, the group began preparing for the wilderness trip. Those who worked left their jobs and some bought provisions. Lundgren encouraged all of the followers to use up any of their available credit cards. All of the group members, including the Averys, gathered their worldly possessions. Around April 12th, 2 or 3 of the followers secretly began digging a 6 by 7 foot pit in the dirt floor of Lundgren's barn. Lundgren told Cheryl Avery to write and tell her family that they were going to Wyoming. Then, Lundgren invited the Averys to dinner. On April 17, 1989, Dennis, Cheryl and their 3 daughters ate dinner at Lundgren's farmhouse. After dinner, Lundgren went out to the barn with his son, Damon, and 4 followers, Bran, Kraft, Winship, and Ron Luff. The Averys stayed in the house with the women and children. At Lundgren's direction, Luff individually led each Avery family member out to the barn, where each was bound and gagged by the men. After the men placed each Avery family member into the pit, Lundgren shot each person 2 or 3 times with a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon. The men then filled the pit with dirt and stones. Afterwards, Lundgren and the others went back to the farmhouse and held a prayer meeting. The months prior to Lundgren's arrest, the next day, April 18th, police officers and FBI agents visited the Lundgren farm to investigate reports about the planned temple assault. Everyone interviewed said that they were at the farm voluntarily and denied knowing anything about plans to assault the temple. The FBI left without arresting anyone, and the group drove away on their wilderness trip. Lundgren selected mountain campsites near Davis, West Virginia, and the group lived in tents there through October 1989. Some of the followers took jobs, and the men continued their military exercises. While in West Virginia, Lundgren chose Tanya Patrick as his second wife. That arrangement did not work out, so Lundgren then picked Catherine Johnson as his second wife. That choice upset Larry Johnson, Catherine's husband, and contributed to group dissension. By October 1989, Lundgren, his family, and about 10 of his followers moved to Missouri. However, more dissension occurred and, by the end of December 1989, Larry Johnson had contacted federal law enforcement authorities about the murders. On January 3, 1990, Kirtland police began digging out the pit in the barn and found Dennis Avery's body. Police uncovered the other Avery family members' bodies the next day. Lundgren had shot Dennis twice in the back and Cheryl 3 times in the torso. He shot Trina once in the head and twice in the body, Rebecca in the back and thigh, and Karen in the head and chest. The coroner found silver duct tape wrapped around the victims' heads, hands, and feet. The origin of 2 damaged bullets found at the scene was unknown. Police discovered that a .45 caliber semi-automatic weapon, belonging to Lundgren, had fired all of the other bullets they recovered. Lundgren bought the weapon in 1987 and sold it in West Virginia in October 1989. On January 7, 1990, federal authorities arrested Lundgren in California. At the time of his trial, the instrument used to diagnose mental illness did not include delusional disorder, with grandiose themes as it does today. Mr. Hilo argued that he believes, based on Mr. Lundgren's beliefs at the time of the offense, that Mr. Lundgren likely suffered from this disorder. If this diagnosis would have been available at the time of trial, Mr. Lundgren's counsel would have more likely pursued an insanity defense. In addition, the failure of trial counsel to introduce the insanity defense at the time of trial resulted in Mr. Lundgren not receiving a fair trial. Mr. Hilo referred to Judge Merritt's dissenting opinion stating, "In many similar deific decree cases in which a delusional person like Lundgren professed to be following God's command to kill, defense lawyers have almost uniformly entered an insanity plea and the jury has accepted the defense in some of the cases." Judge Merritt found Lundgren's counsel was manifestly ineffective and that the writ of habeas corpus should have been issued in this case, requiring a new trial in which Lundgren would have been allowed to present the insanity defense before the jury. In August 1990, a Lake County jury found cult leader Jeffrey Lundgren guilty of the kidnapping and murder of 5 of his followers, all members of the Avery family. Jeffrey Don LUNDGREN was executed by lethal injection in Ohio on October 24, 2006. With 2 hours and 28 minutes left in his life, Jeffrey Lundgren broke down and cried. The 6'1", 275-pound man who spent 17 years on death row for the murder of a family of 5, including 3 children, cried while sitting on his bed, talking to his wife, in his holding cell at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville. At 8:13:25 a.m. Monday, October 24, 2006, a medical staff member gave Lundgren doses of 3 medications to control his high blood pressure and blood sugar levels, treatments for the obesity and diabetes that he once hoped might buy him more time. 10 minutes and 33 seconds later, and still on the phone with his wife, Lundgren began to cry again. The last conversation they had ended 1 hour and 11 minutes before he was pronounced dead. An official time log kept by execution team members, who were commissioned to keep Lundgren comfortable, does not detail what the convicted killer said to his wife or why he was crying. Instead, it documents his last 24 hours, from the moment he walked in the door at 9:42:40 a.m. Monday, October 24, 2006 to the moment he was pronounced dead, at 10:26 a.m. His family refused to claim his body, and he was buried at the Ohio Prison Cemetery. Lundgren was given a meal of his choice on Monday night, a day before his execution. Turkey, potatoes and gravy, a salad and pumpkin pie. He was the 1,050th person executed in the United States since 1976, when the country restored capital punishment. It was the 5th in Ohio that year and the 24th in the state since it resumed executions in 1999. Thank you for watching Death Row.